stories. Tonight, we delve into the chilling reality of isolation, where the silence itself becomes a predator. This is the true account of Ethan, a man who thought he was alone, until the darkness began whispering his name. Turn off your lights, lock your doors, and turn up the volume. Because sometimes, the things that can hear you are closer than you think. Let's begin. The expanded horror story. The echo in the house. It was a Tuesday, the kind of boring, midweek night where nothing is supposed to happen. Ethan was cat-sitting for his aunt, whose house was located far out in the foothills, a sprawling, wood-paneled place built back in the 70s. The quiet here wasn't the urban background hum. It was a dead quiet, thick and unforgiving. He was scrolling through his phone on the worn, floral sofa when the power blinked. Not a full outage, just a sharp blip that reset the digital clock on the microwave to 12 o'clock. The lights came back on, but the silence that followed was heavier, charged with something unnatural. And with that silence, came the scent. A subtle, metallic odor, like old pennies left out in the rain, mixed with something earthy and rotten, like disturbed graveyard soil. It vanished almost immediately, but the memory of the smell made the fine hairs on his arms stand up, instantly wide awake. Ethan tried to rationalize it. The electrical grid was old, the house was musty. He stood up, forcing himself to walk the perimeter. The house was enormous. All the doors were locked, windows sealed. He was truly cut off from the nearest neighbor by 2 miles of dense, shadow-drenched pines. He felt the vast emptiness of the upstairs rooms pressing down on him. A low-grade humming began deep in the walls, not a sound, more of a vibration, that made his teeth ache. He poured himself a glass of water, his hands slightly trembling. He told himself, it's just the old house settling. But houses don't settle with a sense of malevolent intent. He looked down at his phone. No signal. He was completely isolated. The darkness outside the windows felt less like a void and more like a heavy, breathing presence waiting to be let in. He swore he saw a subtle shift in the shadows at the end of the long hallway, a flicker, a movement too quick to be confirmed. His heart began a dull, rhythmic thud against his ribs, a drumbeat of rising fear. He walked into the living room, trying to find a book to distract himself. As he passed the archway to the dining room, he heard it again. Closer. Clearer. A faint, rustling sound, like tissue paper being crumpled gently. He froze, rigid. "Hello," he called out, voice cracking, sounding pathetic even to his own ears. Only the oppressive silence answered. He took 3 steps back towards the kitchen, and that's when the low-grade anxiety escalated into full paranoia. He didn't just hear the sound this time, he heard a breath. A sharp, wet intake of air, directly behind the couch he'd just left. It wasn't a cat. It was too heavy, too deliberate. Then the whisper came. It was dry, cold, and utterly lacking in human warmth. It was just above the threshold of hearing, a terrible, intimate sound that bypassed his ears and went straight for his spine. E-T-H. And he spun around. Nothing. The couch was empty. But the sound wasn't a memory, it was a physical vibration lingering in the air. He stumbled back, his breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps. He started backing away slowly, his eyes darting wildly. The whisper had called his name, confirming that whatever this was, it wasn't random. It was focused on him. He felt a desperate urge to run, but his feet were leaden. Ethan ran into the hallway, desperate for the front door. He fumbled with the deadbolt, his fingers slick with cold sweat and shaking uncontrollably. Just as he managed to turn the lock, the temperature in the hall plummeted. The cold was physical, brutal. It was like being plunged into icy water. He could see his own breath misting in the air. And then, a sound came from the master bedroom at the end of the hall. The lock, previously secured by the heavy brass bolt, snapped. He didn't need to see it. He felt the space warp, the air thicken with ancient hunger. He turned, slowly, compelled by a terror that was now driving him, not just paralyzing him. The doorway to the master bedroom was now a column of absolute shadow, darker than the night outside. And from that void, a shape detached itself. It was tall, too thin, with limbs that seemed to bend the wrong way. But the worst part was its face. A smooth, featureless surface, except for a mouth that was simply an absence of light, a jagged line that opened. The final word was deafening, a scraping hiss that echoed the sound he'd first heard, but magnified 1,000 times. "You came back for us, Ethan." The figure lurched forward. Ethan finally screamed, a raw, tearing sound torn from his lungs, and threw himself through the front door. He didn't look back. He ran across the porch, down the steps, and didn't stop running until the sharp scent of pine needles replaced the metallic, rotten smell of the house. Ethan ran until he reached the highway, where he flagged down a passing car. He never went back for his car, for his things, or for the terrified cat. His aunt sold the house 3 weeks later, claiming the foundation was faulty. He tried to forget, to move on. He got a new job, a new apartment in the city. He thought he was safe. But the whispers, they never fully stopped. They were just muted, like a radio playing just below the static. One morning, nearly 6 months later, Ethan woke up to the smell of old pennies and damp earth. He bolted upright in bed. The scent was faint, but unmistakable. He knew that the thing hadn't been confined to the house. It had simply followed the sound of his name, and now it was a permanent resident. He didn't hear the whisper then. But when he picked up his brand new phone to check the time, he saw a single, unread text message. It was from an unknown number. He opened it, dread pooling in his stomach. The message contained only one word, perfectly spelled, perfectly chilling. Again,